Thank you very much. It is clear Bongani is a product of Bantu education. If he still remembers recitation, I immediately remember Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Stars. What I wonder, what da 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 da. He's a proud product of Bantu education. Sub A. We're talking about zero, my brother. No longer sub A, grade A, whatever. We're no longer talking sub A, sub B. Thank you very much. We are at the crossroads and we have no time to waste time. My cabinet colleagues, those who were supposed to be here but because of unforeseen commitments, they could not make it. United Nations Drugs and Crime Representative, Minister Akisheva, United Nations Regional Representative for Women, Ms. Shongwe, Deputy Minister of Police, Mr. Bongani Mkongi, Deputy Minister of our State Security, Deputy Ministers present here today. Memulikani, thank you for coming. Watinta bafazi, watinti mbogoto, uzakufa, finish and plan. The National Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Advocate Sean Abrams, we thank you for coming here, Advocate, because I know you've got commitments, but you felt that you needed to be present here in the opening of and scourge of violence in our communities. Interim Acting Head, National Commissioner Lisecha Mutiba, Deputy National Police Commissioners, Provincial and Divisional Commissioners, Commanders, leaders of the Community Policing Forums and Community Safety Forums, Inspector General of Intelligence, Chairperson of SIRA, Fathers Mangaliso Mkachwa, Professor Mazibuko, our fearless activist, members of the civil service, invited guests, NGOs who are here with us today, the practitioners who deal with this scourge and deal with the victims and the survivors on a daily basis, the clergy and other dignitaries, community leaders, ladies and gentlemen, I want to salute this morning all our police officers who are dedicated in the task to ensure that we bring about law and order in the Republic of South Africa. I want to salute our police officers in Gauteng, led by Major General Mutsipe, under the stewardship and leadership of General Deliwe, who are both women, by the way, and in the month of August, for tirelessly working to bring about the perpetrators who have killed our beloved Dumi Masilela to book. And today, we can announce that 3 of them have been arrested and other 3 are still on the run. And our message to them, you can run, but we can't hide, we will find you. Because we've got powerful women who are leading the charge to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to book. Who said we don't have powerful women in SAPS? We do. Wathinta abafazi, wathinta imbokodo, uzakufa. And I want to salute these officers. And I know that they're not working alone. They work with others. And I know that every day at night and during the day, when we call you and give you cases, and to say that this is what needs to happen, you have never failed us. You have executed your mandate with honor and dignity, and you deserve our support. In the Women's Month, we must not forget that we've got powerful women in the South African Police Service. You may not see them on television every day because television belongs to Minister Mbalula, who is the sound box of the achievements of these unsung heroes. And I shout, and I command, and I lead with due respect the police officers who face the danger and the difficulties on a daily basis to confront difficult criminals. And on this occasion, when we meet and recharge ourselves and look at the future and respond to the challenges facing our great nation, we understand fully that our duty and responsibility is to serve and protect. We are at a crossroads, but only one of these roads will secure our humanity a better future. The crossroads we're at give us an opportunity to stop talking. It says we must see and hear. We must see the hurt on the faces of South African women. We must see the hurt on the faces of South Africa's children and even infants. We must see the burial cottages day after day. Life, as we contemplate it in this regard, it's under destruction. Women and children are the custodians of humanity and are being preyed upon by violent men amongst us. I often hear that some cases do involve women as perpetrators. This I accept. However, the cold facts are that the number of incidents where a woman is a perpetrator is manageable. On the other hand, men have placed us in this crossroads. It is men against women, men against children, men against gays and lesbians, men against infants, men against the elderly, men against whoever they think is not correct in their own estimation. This cannot be sugar-coated any longer. As is, we are dealing with serious reported case of high-profile non-South African female suspect accused of grievous bodily harm of 2 females. Our legal system and instruments that exist to protect South Africans and women in particular must be seen to be working and justice delivered one way or the other. I shall restrain my comments on this as the matters proceed within our legal system. In this matter, as it is with all of them, we must move swiftly but deliberately so that we do not bungle matters, especially those that are as complex as this high-profile one. The reports themselves place us squarely on the crossroads. The crossroads signage demand we must see, hear, and feel the terror visited upon our women, children, and other vulnerable groups. The terror is in our homes, is in the streets, in churches, and even at times in places of safety like police stations, prisons, and old-age homes. I've convened this gathering, mindful of the fact that civil society, and indeed this government, have convened over 1,000 conferences, prayers, summits, and indabas over this very matter. There have been marches and protests. We are still experiencing alarming and shocking brutality visited on our people by some of our people. We must also ask, is the scourge of violence we are experiencing due to inaction on the part of those entrusted to protect, inaction on the part of communities or civil society? There is an apparent total breakdown of acceptable human behavior in our country. We cannot be deaf or blind to crimes committed by our friends, family members, icons, or idols. We've got no time to waste time. We cannot close our eyes and ears when our colleagues, comrades, leaders, churchmen and sons, husbands and uncles assault, rape, humiliate, and abuse the vulnerable amongst us. Is our inaction due to the fact that the stock market does not crash each time a woman is raped? Is it because the value of the rent is deaf to the cries of little children, as men who trade the same rent, rape, and brutalize the vulnerable? There is something I want to refer to as gender-based violence economics. I talk of the population gender imbalances that each femicide brings. I talk of battered women who, instead of being productive to society, have to attend hospitals to be bandaged up after an assault. I talk of the deep scars that remain after a man has had his forceful way on a woman or another man or a child. We as politicians must realize that gender-based violence visits both the essence of our social fabric and the economy. Likewise, the business community and worker unions must realize the rents and sense of gender-based violence. The public health problems cost to South African public purse is up to 42 billion per year, 1.3% of our GDP. Moreover, the disproportionate ratio in social workers to law enforcement officers has to be addressed. The country employs approximately 12,000 social workers, 173,000 police officers, and 500,000 private security members. Statistics show that for the period April 2016 to September 2016, a total of 60,000 domestic violence-related cases were registered on the SAPS Crime Administration System. From April 2016 to December 2016, there were 37,000 reported cases of sexual offenses. Of these 30,000, 80% were reported cases of rape, which showed a decrease of 6.5% from the previous year's trimester. South Africa has also records of high number of serial rape and serial murder cases. There remains significant underreporting of sexual offenses and domestic violence in South Africa. We must admit to that and not be excited about statistics. There are police and social barriers to reporting gender-based crimes to the police, and this contributes heavily to the scourge. The effects of violence can remain with women and children for a lifetime and can pass from one generation to another. Studies show that children who have witnessed or been subjected to violence are more likely to become victims or abusers themselves. I'm calling on all of us gathered here, all South Africans, to report any suspicion of domestic abuse. And remember always that, I quote, each domestic beating is a potential murder. Each domestic sexual abuse of a child is a potential rape and infanticide. Close quote. In Parliament this past June, we said rape, infanticide, and gender-based violence are henceforth regarded by ourselves as a fundamental threat to national security, and I instructed the police to deal with it in that manner as a priority crime. Gender-based violence is a dishonor to our democracy. It pains me that some of our public representatives get themselves on the wrong side of the law. These cases are very important to the public. They must be handled properly, and there must be no favors nor skewed justice. Perpetrators defile the ground we walk on, but we are yet to show them that indeed they do. This must change. Violence against women and girls is an extreme manifestation of gender inequality and systemic gender-based discrimination. The right of women and children to live free of violence depends on the protection of their human rights and a strong wire of justice. A rape survivor must have rapid access to a health clinic that can administer emergency medical care, including treatment to prevent HIV and unintended pregnancies and counseling. A woman who is beaten by a husband or boyfriend must have some place to go with the children to have safety, sanity, and shelter. The government must make that available. I'm instructing police management to make this a priority in our budgetary matters. A victim of violence must have confidence that when she or he files a police report, that they will receive justice and the perpetrator will be punished. Each domestic beating is a potential murder. We are at a crossroads, and the route we choose must be the one that rejects intimate partner violence, a route that rejects harassment of the LGBTQI community. We must reject gender-based violence in all its forms. This rejection starts with the department I lead. The South African police have a specific set of responsibilities. I would like to be heard clearly on this one. The South African police have a specific set of responsibilities in quelling the scourge of gender-based violence in all its manifestations. We have a responsibility to make it clear that domestic violence is a serious crime. Our communities have rightly criticized the police for reluctance to interfere in domestic disputes, and in particular, for their reluctance to arrest and prosecute the perpetrators of domestic violence. Protection of human rights, prosecution of offenders, prevention of violence, and provision of services to survivors is a legal obligation we have, and it is a promise our constitutional democracy espouses. Television is widely watched and very influential medium across all people in South Africa today. There are over 12 million television sets switched on in South Africa daily. Its impact is far-reaching. Many of most popular TV programs with highest viewership ratings reinforce patriarchal, manpower-wielding customs, portrayal of women in a bad light or as witches, and so on. These violent images against women, the reinforcement of witchcraft as a real thing and bears real results. We are then left with organ harvesting criminality of people with albinism. I address this message to the creative industry here, with us and outside. The portrayal of women and children as sex objects on the TV drama genre contributes to making certain acts appear acceptable to some. It objectifies children and women in general. The crude caricature, portrayal of gays and lesbians put these communities at risk. It dehumanizes them as objects of ridicule. I'm requesting that we start to write screenplays, stories, and media articles that encourage respect and love for women and girl children. TV must promote harmonious lifestyle that accept gay community. This is what the United States television sitcom will and grace achieved to America. I'm fully cognizant that these crimes know no class, but many of the raped or murdered women and children come from the most marginalized sectors of society. They are poor, from rural areas, sex workers, and so on. None of these people deserve to be murdered. They are vulnerable, they must be protected. I'm fully cognizant of the history of oppression that visited our land for centuries, thus breeding violence amongst us. I'm aware that many of the contributing factors, including financial pressures due to economic difficulties, but at the end, we all cannot excuse crime. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, we are at a crossroads in the severe abuse of alcohol. We are at a crossroads, and it demands that our communities, neighbors, and families must not hide behind the shame of domestic violence. There is impunity in this crossroads we find ourselves. To end femicide, we need to end impunity, bring perpetrators to justice, and every individual has to change his or her attitude towards this being just a private domestic issue. The traditional unequal power relations between men and women is abhorrent. The idea that a man has power over his wife, including the complete control over her property and of her daily affairs, is unacceptable. This warped notion that a woman could be a man's property instilled another idea that a husband had the right to administer physical punishment to his wife. Female victims of this domestic violence often retract their police reports or withdraw their police reports or suffer from the inside due to concern over the male breadwinner going to jail. This compounds this cancer into emotional and financial violence against our women and vulnerable groups. Rape and sexual assault, domestic violence, and child abuse have remained unconnected to other areas of criminal victimization. The South African police is focused upon improved training, specialized police, and visible policing. This is where effective change could be implemented. The members of the FCS here are joining us, having been on their conference, focusing on improving service delivery. In our midst are super people. Our FCS investigators have delivered and cracked complex cases, often without recognition. I've personally seen the work you do, the improved care, and the sensitivity you approach and manage cases. You are all our heroes and heroines, and I encourage you to reach for excellence. In your very difficult and emotionally taxing job, the FCS unit requires all the support it requires. It requires that we organize ourselves first to reprioritize gender-based violence in our human resource establishment. As a priority crime, gender-based violence will henceforth receive due budgetary allocation to do its work effectively. And I look forward to the FCS conference report from there's no water. Point of order, honorable members. And I look forward to FCS conference report from Major General Musikidi, as it will inform our short-term and medium-term interventions. Lieutenant General Ngwenya is also instructed to provide all necessary support to FCS. Female victims of this domestic violence. Female victims of this domestic violence often retract their police reports or suffer from the inside due to concern over the male breadwinner going to jail. This compounds this cancer into emotional and financial violence against our women. And they say, if you want to see things get done, you must put a woman at the helm. If you want to see things get done, at any given point, you must put the woman at the helm. With due respect to men, it has been your time, but this is the time of women as we move forward. And you must understand that the Minister of Police is very committed to that, and you will see in the coming days the actions of the Minister when it comes to affirmation of women in terms of the leadership of police in this country. That has got nothing to do who becomes the National Commissioner. I'm just making a point. Rape and sexual assault, domestic violence and child abuse have remained unconnected to other areas of criminal victimization. Earlier, I spoke of the direct and specific applications that SAPS have. Allow me to mention but a few of the laws and regulations pertaining to the Older Persons Act 13, 2006, which provides protection to older persons and promote their status, well-being, safety and security, and to combat their abuse. The 2012 Cabinet approved Service Charter for Victims of Crime in South Africa and minimum standards for services to victims of crime to protect and promote the rights of victims in compliance with South Africa's obligations under various international and regional human rights treaties. The Child Justice Act 2008, which creates a new separate criminal justice system for children in conflict with the law. The Act requires that children be treated differently from adults, but provide for them to be held responsible and accountable for their actions. The criminal law, sexual offenses, and related matters. The Domestic Violence Act 1998, which imposes certain obligations. These laws and regulations, together with others, correctly emphasize the victim's plight from these laws and the policy on reducing barriers to reporting of sexual offenses and domestic violence, which you have in your Indaba packs. I aimed at focusing our efforts into making it easier and less traumatic to report these crimes. The continued perpetuation of these crimes emanate from the cases that get withdrawn and not reported. Often victims say they were chased away from police station, or their case was not treated seriously, or they were viewed with suspicion. Re-victimized, humiliated, or simply ignored by police. We must give communities and our vulnerable groups understanding of their rights and expectations so that we could be held to account effectively. We must reduce the gap between reported and unreported incidents of sexual offenses and domestic violence. This will be a boost to efforts to prevent such violence. Let us reduce barriers to reporting these crimes. We must put our people first. I trust that this policy will be an important resource for South African Police Service and communities alike as we take up the challenge of building safer communities. The offenses of domestic violence, rape, femicide, and infanticide particularly, are surrounded by strong feelings and insensitive interviewing of a victim by police or friends of a victim already humiliated and degraded, may cause further trauma. We must not re-humiliate and not re-victimize the victims at our police stations. We must make sure that each police station has a victim support area, a victim-friendly room. We encourage business to adopt their local police stations and assist their communities with these facilities. When we suspect our loved one is missing, report the matter to police immediately. There is no waiting period. No victim must be sent away from a police station without a case being opened and a proper interview made. We need not see bruises to open a case. Each slap on the face is a potential femicide. Each unwanted touching is a potential rape. Each nasty word harassment to lesbian gay community is a potential hate crime. Each verbal abuse of a woman because of a dress is a potential rape. Yekani uzodwa wabantu. Leave her alone and let her express herself beautifully and in accordance with the limits of the law. Allow me to conclude with this important policy statement. While some allegations of rape may be false, all allegations must commence on the premise that complainant is a genuine victim. Police and community should not be courts of law. Courts are the only centers to pronounce guilty or not guilty. The 6-point plan we unveiled last week, therefore, does not come out of thin air, but broader policy objectives, which are an instruction to our police officers and a commitment to our people. The 6-point plan entails, I repeat after the Deputy Minister, 1, all victims should be treated with respect, dignity, and interviewed by a trained police official in a victim-sensitive manner. 2, victims should be assisted in a victim-friendly room or an alternative room where the statement will be taken in private or other location, providing victim support services. It means that work must be done by a trained person, not a person who is faced with a plethora of issues on his table. He's chasing criminals and all of that. That is why funny questions like, what did you do when this happened to you? Those questions must not arise, because somebody who understands will take you through the process at the level of the police station. Victims will be referred, taken for medical examination by the healthcare professional to obtain medical evidence and complete a medical report, including seeing to the health of the victim. Remember, the perpetrator is somebody who's very powerful all the time, very powerful, and that is why the law must protect the victim. 4, the investigation should be conducted by the Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Investigation Unit, or a detective with relevant training. 5, the families and victims of sexual offences, femicide and infanticide, should all be referred to victim support services that are available within the precinct for legal, medical, and social and psychological help. 6, victims should be proactively given feedback on the progress of their cases on a continuous basis. I stress this must be proactive on our part as police investigators. Each police station will have these 6 points posted visibly at the police station, and awareness, including a national instruction, has been prepared in this regard. And you must understand, we talk about victims, but equally we talk about survivors. When you enter the police station, you are a victim. When you go through, you are a survivor. And because we've got our women who have been terrorized and offended, and when they enter in the police station, they don't enter as survivors. They enter as victims. They've been terrorized. They've been violated. It is the task of our police force to transform them into survivors so that they can live to tell the story of their own experience for generations to come. In planning this Action Indaba, we said we should be deliberate in calling this an Action Indaba. Emphasis on the word action. We must come out of here after tomorrow with a clear action plan, an action plan agenda with clear deliverables and responsibilities for each one of us and the organizations we represent. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, we have no time to waste time. Our people are asking for more social workers and not more police. Our government approach has to be integrated across departments like social services, small business development, Department of Health, Human Settlement, SAPS, and Justice Department. Justice Department through the NPA must hear our people when they say enough is enough. Oppose bail on serious offenses and gender-based violence.